On this episode of AV Week, AVIXA releases the winners of their Experience Awards, the state of interactive displays, and how AV can help customers stay safe post-COVID-19. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 460, recorded Friday, June 12th, 2020. Layers.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by FSR and by it.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week. First and foremost, YT Lang from A10. Welcome, ma'am.
Hey, Tim. It's nice to come back.
Absolutely. We were recording this on Friday. If this was a normal year, my happy butt would be on a plane sometime in about 12 hours from now, but to get to Infocom, but it's not. We will have a conversation about Infocom Connected and Infocom 2020 in a few minutes. But also who would be hanging out with me next week is my buddy, Mr. Luke Jordan from Electroacoustics. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. We would be enjoying an AV Roki on this next Tuesday, but again, alas, that is not today. Actually, next Tuesday, they're doing AVIXA is doing a trivia contest. So instead of AV Roki, you can join in and show everybody how smart you are, or in my case, how not smart you are. So you can sign up for that at the Infocom Connected website. Also with us, a young man who hasn't been on this program in quite a while, Mr. Frank West from QSC. Welcome, sir.
Great to be back. Good to see everybody.
Good to see you, sir. Good to see you. And last but not least, Mr. Michael Bredwell from Sonance. Welcome, sir.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So a couple things. Our first story that we're tackling here is two different stories. I read these this week, and it was like dueling banjos going off in my head. First and foremost, AV Magazine wrote a piece talking about a survey that was conducted by Ultraleap in the EU, highlighting a loss of confidence in touchscreens due to COVID-19. Then you flip over to Sound and Communications in an article from our buddy Manolo Almagro, looking at the increase of technology and adoption of immersive display technologies with digital signage, wayfinding, point-of-sale systems, all of that. So this leads to two different looks at the touchscreen market. I'm going to start with you, Luke, when it comes to this. Where do we see touchscreens landing in the next 6 to 9 months with COVID-19 as we come out of it, as retail folks are coming back and looking at what COVID-19 and what their systems look like post COVID-19, but also places like hospitals as well as schools and offices where a touchscreen was almost the pinnacle of control system?
I think it's going to differ by the needs of each of those markets. I think healthcare, last time I was on with you, we actually talked about sensors that just needed your eyes so that you could wear a mask and everything's contactless. So I think healthcare is going to take this very seriously because it has different consequences. At the same time, I think that a lot of offices that have standardized on certain solutions, they're going to either change everything, which is extremely expensive, or they're going to just stick with what they've got and maybe change their protocols for how you interact with the office space. It might be that you need to wear gloves, but that'll still work. Nitrile gloves will still work with a touch screen. It might be that everything gets wiped down at the end of the day. Our office policy at 4:45 every day, everyone grabs a rag and we disinfect keyboards, doorknobs, anything like that, so that every day we're walking into a sanitized environment. So I think that the markets are going to each respond differently according to their needs.
Very good. And that's actually not a bad idea. It's something that that we've talked about here. We haven't put it into place yet because right now it's still just Mitchell and me. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't. It's one of those things that we're considering. Mr. Bridwell, we'll start with you on this next question though. How do you educate dealers to overcome health and medical concerns about specific devices without being dismissive of the concerns of those clients?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? Because, you have to take your manufacturing hat off a little bit and just be a human being. My wife is a cardiothoracic nurse at Emory Hospital here in Atlanta, and they all share, on 4B, when you really don't ever want to end up on her floor, by the way. You never want to see my wife at work. You're having a significant thing occur with you. But they share, between 4 nurses, they typically share one computer where they have to chart everything. And they have to have that thing ripped out and completely reconfigured and recreated. And that is a perfect example of where an integrator, working with a manufacturer with a solution that, say, rejects germs, but is also a handheld in some way, because there's not going to be like an AR, VR solution for that, right? There's still a nurse walking into a patient's room. There's going to be direct exposure and direct interaction, and then an action that follows from that. So I think it's learning the actual steps of somebody's actual job, and then working backwards from that to try to say, okay, if there's 8 touches for a nurse to do her job with a patient in their room when they go in there for 10 minutes, how can we get rid of 3 of those? Okay, how can we get rid of the next 2? You're not going to be able to solve all the interaction issues in a typical person's job work environment like that. So, yeah, I think unwinding it as an onion, layer by layer.
Layers.
That's how you attack it, and try to negate 1 or 2 first and foremost.
All right. YT, same kind of question though. And although Mike brings up actually a really good point about seeing what sorts of technology we can leverage and seeing how many of those touches we can eliminate, while at the same time evolving this technology that has become almost like second nature to us.
Right. And by the way, I think these 2 articles are like great articles, and it actually remind me of a movie, Tom Cruise Minority Report. Yep. I don't know if you're right. I mean, I was so excited when I saw the movie. Tom Cruise was doing all the gesture control. But then if we comes back to the gas control, actually one thing that I've been thinking is the ecosystem. And actually, Tim, you brought up earlier about control system. Like nowadays, is a manufacturer's app talks to their own control box, and the control box will talk to other devices through like IR232 Relay IO. But when it comes to gas gesture control, I'm thinking about is actually the API integration. Like one manufacturer won't be able to do all this, but what's most important is how we can put our solution together in one ecosystem. So for example, like I believe the gesture control solution provider will have some kind of open APIs. And for vendors like us, we have control box, and then that's how we integrate with their functions in order to bring a more complete solution to not only to the end user, but also to the system integrator, because the system integrators are the one need to figure out also how do I put all these things together. I want to say, I like how technologies are evolving, and I think that's the really exciting part. And I'm seeing in a good way where, kind of because what's happening nowadays push us to move forward a little bit faster than we were planning, but that's a good thing. So I'm looking at a good opportunity for all the solution providers to work together in this ecosystem.
All right. Frank, YT brings up a really good point, and QSC does have a control system that does kind of integrate with other manufacturers. So how do you work with those manufacturers and then take that to your dealers and then their clients and say, look, here's an entire system that we can start leveraging to make you safer?
We heard this concern, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, sitting on different consultant webinars and talking to, corporate real estate people and even AV integrators. and end users. And we actually just developed a solution for this today, which is kind of what we're marketing, what here and there. But we're calling it Bring Your Own Control. So basically the ability to either have just a QR code in a room that somebody could scan with their phone, or even display the QR code on the room display or the touch panel. And then that gives you the ability to just use this device that everybody else has in their pocket and either open up our app, which is an iOS device, which would be an exact replica of the touch panel, or even just tag a web page. So that way it's device agnostic, basically. And give how long this trend of like, I don't want to touch that continues is anybody's best guess, but it's an immediate reaction to the people that are using QSIS control today, that they can have a touchless environment, or at least a bring your own control environment.
Yeah. Real quickly about the exact replica of the touch panel there. Is that, I guess the best way to ask this is, how much more work is that from the integrator standpoint? Are they creating a brand new graphical, a brand new GUI, or is it something that you guys just kind of take their existing and pull
in the settings of QSIS, you can choose what device you want to map your UCI to. So there might be some slight editing. I think Luke's giving me a plug here.
I am actually, because I love you, Frank. I've got QSIS control in my conference room, and I can literally just select the conference room control page from my phone, and what's on my touch screen immediately pulls up on my phone. It's a free app, and I don't have to make an iPad version, an iPhone version, a QSC wired touch panel version. It is pretty fantastic. So free plug for Frank.
Thanks a bunch. It really, for us, by doing it with QR codes, is that we make it so that the end user doesn't have to be an AV genius. All they have to do is scan a QR code and they magically have a control surface.
And the tie-in to COVID and how this is actually becoming more popular outside of even just control systems. I went to a bar restaurant a couple weeks ago, and instead of handing out menus, you scanned a QR code on your way in, and it pulled up the menu on your phone, and then you could just tell the waiter what you wanted to order, but there is no exchange. Instead of having to wipe down menus every night, or you throw the menu away, it's just a QR code done. In a lot of ways, I see that that's almost better for me, instead of having this big menu that I'm trying to make room for on the table. So I think there's a lot of different uses for everyone has a device like this, and can I pull up information, menus, control systems, whatever. I think there's a lot of room for that.
Absolutely. All right. Our next story actually comes to us from our website and our underwriter, Atlas IED. Atlas has released a clean room speaker cover that creates a barrier between the building plenum and the room environment. This is for their SHS speaker. If you've never seen this, well, it's about the size of I don't know, a little bit bigger than $50 is the size of the hole that comes through the drop ceiling when you mount this thing. What it's made for, though, it's made for clean rooms. And I'll start with YT on this. How important is it for AV to develop products that can live in sanitized room? We already talked about the hospitals here, but live in clean and sanitized environments.
Good point. Yeah, when I saw this article, I really think small accessories can make big difference, right? So, and because of different times. So for us, because we have solutions more toward video side. So actually, one thing that I would like to bring up might not be that related to like healthcare, but the thing is actually it's about the HDMI cables, HDMI connectors. Because we all know like HDMI connectors don't like VGA or DVI or DisplayPort that have the locking mechanism. So
Amen,
small I know, like imagine how many times we or our customer system integrators would receive a call from the customer saying, hey, I don't have a video. And then they went on site and realized, oh, it's just a loose HDMI cable. So that's why we come up with this little yellow tie, which you can lock the HDMI cable firmly on the product itself, just through a little screw. And then, like from time to time when I'm talking to different people, I say, oh yeah, it's a small thing. But most of the time, what the system integrators would give feedback to us is, it's small, but it's actually not, because it will save them a lot of time doing troubleshooting and stuff. So I think it applies to the same thing for this rubber cover. So as a solution provider or manufacturer, one of the things that we've been doing is, besides the main product, the box or the software itself, we're thinking about the accessories that can really help the system integrators to, either finish the installation in more quickly or avoid the need for troubleshooting.
Mr. Bridwell, is this same kind of question is here? Is this something where if the product is coming in contact, right, or you're living in the same room as the AV device, then we need to start looking at ways to sanitize it, ways to make it antibacterial. But if it's in a rack, right? If it's in the back 40 somewhere, and it's in a rack room somewhere where nobody's ever going to touch it, is it something where maybe that doesn't have to be so concerned with sanitation, or is it everything in the system from soup to nuts that should be?
It's another good question, right? You've trapped me in the conundrum of giving me a speaker question here earlier, because I have so many questions about this product, and the first one is, do you know if this speaker is an open backhand? Like,
it is not.
No backhand on this?
No.
There's a backhand.
It's a backhand. Oh, it's not a can. It's a square, but it has a back to it. Yes.
There's a sealed enclosure.
Yes, sir.
So if there's a sealed enclosure and a speaker cone, I don't understand where dust would get through in general. And I also don't know why you would put a rubber cover over a speaker when you're needing vocal clarity. But I have lots of questions, so I'll dig into those after this. In that regard, I don't know that dust is the predominant thing that something like a hospital is trying to is overly concerned about in this case. It's more about multiple exposure, and those exposure points typically being human, because hospitals typically have ventilation systems that are 8 times cleaner than your cleanest airplane with the HEPA filters they use and such. So I don't know that something that's in a back rack that's far, far away from any patient treatment ever becomes even a potential point of contact of influence over the rest of the space.
Very good points. Frank, when it comes to whether it's these products or it's other areas, what other verticals do we see the AV industry innovating when it comes to protecting folks, whether it's COVID-19 or the next pandemic or the next virus outbreak?
I mean, I think the biggest opportunity right now is the reality is that it comes down to herd management, and that's going to play really strong when it comes to room scheduling and control and monitoring. But I keep hearing about trends where they want less people in spaces, larger spaces to encourage social distancing. I think understanding the needs of what the meeting or the event is, so that we have the proper space with the proper technologies, and then obviously making them, we talked about touch less or less touch, more gesture control, but more automation, I guess, behind the scenes in terms of determining who's in the meeting, and that the technologies support what the meeting needs to do.
All right, Luke, you're the one talking with clients predominantly straight up, face to face or virtual to virtual. What are you hearing back from folks when it's, whether it's a hospital or it's an education folks? What is it that they're concerned about?
They're concerned with just existing right now. I think that the majority of the people are not really looking at how do I change my facility at every interface point. I think everyone is just trying to calculate how many people am I allowed to put in this room at 6 feet of distance, and what do they need to wear, or how often do they have to wash, or do they need gloves? That's the majority of what I've seen. Every church has about 20 gallons of sanitizer for the ones that have opened. churches doing mass. They're sorry, they're dealing with that way. They're taping off pews. People are still working from home, and they're taking people that really are more effective in the office and allowing them to be part of that 25 or 50% that are coming back. But I'm really not seeing the overall shape of the room or what's in the room changing right now. People are still just trying to figure out which way is up. How long are we going to be allowed to stay open before things close again, or will it continue opening back up? And then I think after we have gotten past, I hope we get past this pandemic shutdown. Once we get past that, I think that's when people are going to say, now that that's done, what needs to change to prevent this in the future or be better prepared for when it occurs. But I don't see a lot of tweaks like this being effective in getting us out of the pandemic. So I think that we're just still 1 foot in panic mode and really haven't had a good shift towards what do we need to be doing.
No. And, go ahead, Frank.
Oh, the other thing is, I think around the topic of room scheduling, I mean, I'm sure you've all been in this situation before when you're waiting in the hallway to jump into the conference room once the previous meeting ends. I think that a best practice is to try to schedule some downtime so that the room can be cleaned before the next people use it. So I'm hearing that becoming more the standard of, when a meeting ends, housekeeping is in the hallway waiting to disinfect the room so that it's prepared for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of those commonplace things where, regardless of what scheduling software you use and what panels you use, there will be that buffer already built in, right? So the only thing beyond that is managing those folks that habitually go long in meetings, and that's a whole nother.
It's harmony between human resources, AV, and services. Building services.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Last story here comes to us from our friends over at Commercial Integrator. AVIXA has announced the winners of the 2020 AV Experience Award. These are a brand new program that quote unquote recognizes the innovative integration of content, space, and AV to enrich experiences. The winners include Harvard Business School, Bart Cressa Studio, which if you were at either Infocom last year or ISE in 2019, you saw their sculpture that had projection mapping, as well as the Yogi Berra Museum. Mr. Bridwell, we'll start with you on this. Very simple question. Why are awards that highlight the experience of AV important?
Wow. First and foremost, I want to eat at that restaurant in Denmark more than any place I've wanted to eat in the last year that I've seen. That thing is gorgeous. And,
so yeah, one of the other winners was a restaurant in Denmark. So yeah,
this is the synthesis of AVIXA being an experiential organization and less of a hardware organization. So this just makes perfect sense, right? And Brad Grimes has been talking about this for years and years and years, and trying to write great content around it to illustrate it and to help people stop thinking about our industry from a box-to-box standpoint and more about, hey, if your neighbor interacted with AV, either at a retail environment or a restaurant or something of that nature, what was their experience like? Did they enjoy it? Was there something there that enhanced it? This just makes perfect sense to me.
All right, Frank. The AVIXA has been talking about it, and our buddy Brad Grimes, who used to work for AVIXA, was one of the first folks to write about that. They've been talking about the experience for the last 5 or 6 years. How has the experience and the experience design evolved over the last 5 or 10 years, Frank?
Well, I mean, I think it is the great differentiator of the professional AV industry. And I think it's whether you're a manufacturer, a consultant, or an integrator, it should be what you strive to every day, is to hold to a higher standard. And I do think that in this, today more so than ever, is creating that experience that the people that are in the space can really get something unique out of it, but also paying attention to the people on the far end so that they're able to share in that experience. So I think what I'm talking about is creating a real hybrid environment where it can be unique and special to the people that are there in person, but also, embracing that, not everybody can be in places.
Yeah, absolutely. Luke, when you're designing systems and you're pitching deals, how do you convey the experience, right? Whether that's to a house of worship or to a school.
I don't know if this is an interesting take on the experience awards.
It's from you. I'm certain it will be interesting.
We were joking before we got rolling here this afternoon about how kids coming into the industry probably aren't going to be wowed by a really nice courtroom AV system, and that stuff like this is really what attracts people. This is why people want to get into AV. But at the same time, the experience that sometimes gets overlooked is a church system where no one is running sound. It's just an automatic mixer system and some priests wearing microphones. You turn it on, you talk, it's intelligible and everyone can hear, and you turn it off and you go home, and it doesn't fail. It doesn't have interference. Everyone has good hearing or can understand. Every seat's covered. That's an amazing experience. Yeah. It's not, nothing about it is out of the ordinary or exceptional, other than the fact that it was the right design for that room, and it was designed with the people using it in mind. And there's a lot that has to go right for that to happen. Standards are an important part of making that happen. David Danto, bless his heart, he harps on this nonstop, that experience is the wrong word to be using. We should not be focusing on experiences. We should be focusing on standards. I don't think that either side of that extreme is right or wrong. Good standards create great experiences. So part of what I do in my sales role is I help people understand what is my budget, what is my need, and what am I trying to do with this system. When the three of those align well, we have a great experience. Some of these mega churches down here in Texas, it is just amazing. I mean, it's like this stuff all day, every day at these churches. Other churches who have a shoestring budget but still have an important message to give to people that are entrusting that church with their spiritual care and relationship, they just want to be able to communicate well, and it doesn't have to be fancy. It might just be great acoustics to the point where you don't need a microphone. Jesus used amphitheaters. So it's just a different experience for the different needs, and standards, good design, and taking care of the client's needs above what you think you might be able to do for them is very important.
I'm just going to listen to this segment of Luke talking for like the next week, because there's all kinds of good stuff in here. And for those of you outside of the U.S. And you've never heard the term "bless your heart" or "bless his heart," just look it up on the internet, and you'll get a kick out of that. YT,
it's a Southern thing.
It's a Southern thing, and I'm not going to go comment about what it means. YT, last question here before we let everybody go. What other areas can AVIXA highlight? I mean, they've gone down this experience road. What other areas should we be highlighting?
Well, before answering that, I kind of want to echo back about this article on the experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, all three gentlemen, I mean, the points are really, really good, because I think for Luke, it's more like down to earth. That's the kind of experience as well, to make sure everything works. But at the same time, I also like how Frank brought it up, because, by the way, Tim, when you sent me the article, I forwarded to our internal teams, and everyone was like, "Oh, I want to go to this, I want to go there." So I also think the technology that's kind of maybe pushing us forward is important as well, because it will echo back to the environment that we're using. And then Frank kind of touched it a little bit. Another thing is because myself, I couldn't go there either. So I was actually thinking about really how can we bring this kind of experience to more people. Because right now it's just the people who are there will have that kind of experience. But those are like good stuff. So that really makes me thinking about either do like a virtual event. For example, like we're gonna have an Infocom connected virtual event next week. So then echo back to Tim, your question. I think another thing is really how, because of this COVID-19, how we can bring more information and experience through these virtual events to make more people aware of this and think about this. And of course, come up with even better technologies and even better solutions.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. YT Lang from ATEM. Thank you. How do people get a hold of you or ATEM, or how do they find you next week or this week at InfoComm Connected?
Yeah, sure, of course. So our website, www.atem.com, and we're pretty active on LinkedIn, Facebook. And for InfoComm Connected next week, just go ahead and search for us, ATEN, A10. And we will actually have 2 webinars. One of the webinar, we will talk about House of Worship applications. And another webinar, which is actually our own 20-minute on-demand presentation. So in that 20 minutes, instead of talking about our products or solution, we are actually going to talk about streaming technologies, because we are seeing streaming is getting more and more popular. So we're going to talk about what's the difference between WebRTC and RTMP, and how do you choose between them, along with different applications like corporate meetings, education, and house of worships. So I think these 2 webinars will be pretty helpful as well. So we look forward to virtually seeing you next week in InfoComm Connected. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Bridwell, thank you, sir. How do people get a hold of you or Sonance or connect with you during InfoComm Connected?
Yeah, you can get me at michaelb@sonance.com or sonance.com for our general website. And we're a premier sponsor for InfoComm Connected this week. So we will have multiple people that you can book time with through an open calendar. And we'll have a portal page that has a wealth of information, including 12 brand new product videos that are deep dives, but only 2.5 minutes each. So easy to watch and then move on.
All right, very good. Mr. West, we're going to end here with all the 3 manufacturers. Thank you, sir. How do people get a hold of you or QSC?
Frank.west@qsc.com, and qsc.com is our website. And similar, we're going to have the ability to schedule meetings with QSC employees, and we have some interesting topics around control, cloud, all kinds of fun stuff. A software-based Dante for QSys as well.
All right, very good. Mr. Jordan, thank you, sir. You don't have a booth next week at InfoComm 2020, but how do people get a hold of you or Electroacoustics?
Well, I'll be on my back porch with my boots up drinking a margarita next week. You can find me on
Going
Twitter
to all of their booths virtually and typing in Frank West every 15 minutes for a meeting, yes.
I'm going to book 30 meetings with Frank just to keep him busy. You can find me at Luke Jordan EAVI on Twitter or eavi.com to find our company.
All right, very good. Are you teaching anything next week? Or are you just going to hang out and go to the sessions?
I don't know anything.
You don't know anything. All right. Well, I am teaching. Well, I shouldn't take teaching something. I'm on 2 different sessions. One's with my buddy Megan Dutta, talking about the it's called Almost Famous, the technology that's almost quite there. That's getting there, and then her and I will be taking questions after that. And then that's on Tuesday. Then on Thursday, Matt Scott, Chris Netto, and I are doing the hidden gems, quote unquote, of the 10x10 booths. Now, little backstory here. Number 1, I was already scheduled to do this on the Friday of InfoComm. Obviously, there are no 10x10 booths because they're virtual and they're not 10x10. But you get the idea here, right? We're not talking about the huge, ginormous booths. We're not talking about Frank, right? And Frank is great, and the QSC booth is wonderful, right? We're not talking about Sonance or A10. We're talking about the folks in the back 40, right? The smaller booths, the folks who the up and coming folks, the entrepreneurs that are coming with a great new product or new idea. So we'll go through the show floor on Tuesday and Wednesday and give you 15 minutes of the ones you might want to go and check out. So you can also go by our website. Don't follow me on the Twitters because hockey's starting back up again, and go Blues. But if you want to go by our website, avnation.tv, that's avnation.tv, brand spanking new website that our editor-in-chief, Lenora Lane, spearheaded, so it looks really cool. While you're there, check out our underwriter section. These are folks who help us financially, help us bring you AVWeek and ResiWeek and all the others in coverage of InfoComm Connected, and QSC is one of those, and we thank them for their support. Also, I mentioned Lenore. She is kind of rejiggered and imagined our newsletter. She's doing a really great job of that. So you can sign up for that also on the website. So all that and more at AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we had for AV Week.